Alright, hi, my name is Sierra Maynard and I'm doing my project on Pearl Harbor. So, a little insight into this, just the beginning. Pearl Harbor was our naval base in Honolulu, Hawaii, and what happened with it is that it was bombed by the Japanese in December 7th, 1941. So, basically, I'm just going to talk about what led up to that, why they did it, what happened, and what we should take away from this. So a little background for Pearl Harbor um, was that it was basically the start of our involvement in World War II. So Germany and Italy were causing trouble, and they were allied with Japan, and they were kind of fighting with Britain and France, and we wanted to stay out of it for the most part. But we were like kind of on the down low, helping Britain and France and sending them supplies in hopes for them to fight their own war. We wanted to stay neutral. Um, and a little reason why we ended up getting bombed by Japan was because President Roosevelt at the time had moved the U.S. Pacific Fleet from California into Pearl Harbor in, I think, 1939. And it threatened Japan because they were in the process of wanting to expand into the Pacific. So, and I mean, the events leading up to this, both Japan and the US kind of thought that the war was going to happen anyways, but we were trying to avoid it as long as possible, at least for us. Japan, not so much. So, the attack, it was a surprise military strike by the Japanese Navy Air Service, and they did it because they were trying to prevent us from, they were trying to prevent us from being involved in the war, which we didn't really want to be involved anyways, but Japan's kind of mindset was that maybe, if we bomb this one really important, naval base or whatever, we'll scare them into not getting involved at all, and maybe Japan, Germany, and Italy can have their way, which is definitely not something we want. But yeah, the attack on Pearl Harbor was essentially the start of the United States into the World War II. And what happened was when they bombed, there was, I think, 18 battleships total that were damaged, and 4 of them were actually sunk completely. So it was a really big hit. Like, it damaged us significantly. So when it happened, it was supposed to scare us away, but it ended up just making us more angry, so that's why we ended up bombing Japan later on with our nuclear bombs. So it's the start of that as well. And I put a quote at the bottom. The total number of military personnel killed was 2,335, including about 2,000 Navy, 100 Marines, 200 Army, and there was like 70 civilians that were killed, making the total number of people dead 2,403. Yeah, so a lot of people, and also there was a lot more Americans harmed during this than there was Japanese, obviously, since it was a surprise attack and we didn't see it coming and we couldn't fight them off as well as we should have been able to. And I do have a video here. It actually, in the video, it's several still living soldiers from the Pearl Harbor attack. And I was going to play it during this, but you can't hear it. And the only way to be able to record the screen and have you hear it is if I have to pay, and that's not happening. So anyway, there is a video here. You can see it later if you so wish to. So basically, after the attack, the results were kind of World War II. I mean, for us at least. It was already going on for other countries, but our involvement. It also resulted in our kind of like separate little war with Japan. Not just Germany and Italy, and kind of our bad ties with the Soviet Union. The attack on Pearl Harbor itself actually only lasted like an hour and a half, and it was over with a ton of our people dead, 18 ships affected. But luckily, there was actually a couple ships not in Pearl Harbor at the moment, so we used those. The ones that were out at sea, they ended up being safe, so that ended up being a big win for us when it came to World War II because we didn't have a lot of ships left because they were bombed. So yeah, and afterwards we declared war on Japan, obviously. And because of that, it kind of was a domino effect of everyone declaring war on the other side. So rather than just Britain and France's fight, it was now Britain, France, and the US against Germany, Italy, and Japan. Mostly Japan, because Japan was like the powerhouse. But yeah, the aftermath of it was essentially the start of like the entire World War II for the United States and our wars with Japan, which were not a fun thing. So, without going too much into the entirety of World War II, that was basically the aftermath for Pearl Harbor and its relations with the United States. So, I mean, in conclusion, what you probably should take away with this is where Pearl Harbor was and what it was. So, it was our naval base, which was originally in California but was moved by Roosevelt to Pearl Harbor in Honolulu, Hawaii. And it was surprise bombed by the Japanese in order, kind of like an act of terrorism, to scare us away from getting involved in their affairs in China and Southeast Asia because they wanted to take over. So that this was kind of their way of trying to prevent us from getting involved when really it only made us get more involved. And as a result, it was the start of our involvement in World War II as an actual fighting force instead of just suppliers. Pearl Harbor was bombed on December 7th, 1941, and after it had happened and we had declared war on Japan, it was pretty much the start of a serious world war. Because after we had declared war on the Empire of Japan, Germany and Italy declared war on us, and then pretty soon everyone was all involved. And Pearl Harbor was also our leading reason to bomb Japan with our nuclear bombs. These are all the sites I used, and I will also include a Word document with them in MLA format as well. Thank you.